In order to design sets that train and teach, we need to know what we're trying to develop. And so we need to know what creates speed. There are seemingly thousands of different skills for each stroke that swimmers need to master in order to be successful. However, that's not practical in terms of creating a system and a program for developing skills that help swimmers win races. In reality, there are actually only two skills that swimmers really need to know. They need to be able to increase propulsion and they need to be able to decrease resistance or drag. Those are the only two skills that swimmers really need to learn. In fact, every skill you can think of is going to be influencing one of those two key objectives. So to increase propulsion, what swimmers need to do is they need to create a really large surface area with their limbs. They need to move that surface area for as long as possible backwards, and they need to accelerate limb speed as they go. Those are the common denominators between every propulsive action in the water. So to create a large surface area, they want to use their whole forearm and hand. And on the lower body, they want to use their full foot and their shin to create propulsion and move water backwards. Another key aspect is to move that surface area for as long as possible. So they need to get an early catch, getting their limb positioned backwards as early as possible, and then they need to move that limb backwards for as long as possible through the full range of motion that the limb can be moved backwards with force. If you can do that, it's going to create more propulsion with each stroke or each kick. Lastly, swimmers need to learn to accelerate their limb speed. It can't be just moving the arm or moving the leg backwards. It needs to be moved backwards with increasing limb speed in order to maintain propulsion throughout the stroke. If the same limb speed is used throughout the stroke, the physics of the water dictate you're just not going to get as much propulsion as you move through. So swimmers have to learn to create patient pressure and accelerate the limb speed. Each stroke uses the same basic strategies to achieve this. And so what you can do is you can watch underwater footage of butterfly, breaststroke, backstroke, and freestyle. And what you'll see is that in every case, swimmers orient the whole upper arm backwards and they create a lot of space in their armpit by creating an early catch. And then they close down that space with a full pull to get as much out of each stroke as they can. And more or less, they're pulling directly backwards. The more swimmers deviate from this basic pattern, the less propulsion they're going to create. So what we need to help swimmers learn to do is to use this basic strategy and move as much water backwards with each stroke. Just as importantly, swimmers need to decrease resistance as they move through the water. And there's two strategies that they need to use to do so. First, they need to move through the water in horizontal alignment. That means they need to be straight at the surface of the water and they need to be moving forwards. They should be relatively in line from head to toe. Deviations from that are going to create a lot more drag. Secondly, they need to move through the water in lateral alignment. There shouldn't be any side-to-side motion that's unnecessary or unproductive. Again, they need to move straight through the water. The more swimmers can move straight through the water, the less resistance they create and the faster they're going to swim. Now, horizontal alignment. What are some of the key aspects of it? One is head position. If the head is really high, the hips are often going to be low, and that's going to create more resistance. Or if the head is unnecessarily low, that's going to create more resistance as well. And in butterfly and breaststroke, there should be some undulation to help swimmers effectively execute arm pulls, leg kicks, and recover the arms smoothly. However, too much undulation is going to cause problems because it's going to increase resistance as well. So there needs to be an optimal amount of undulation so that swimmers can effectively execute the mechanics of the stroke. However, too much undulation is going to cause too much resistance. Often, swimmers can execute these basic skills when not breathing. However, when breathing, these skills become more problematic because the head needs to be lifted out of alignment, and swimmers can often move the head out of alignment more than is necessary, causing more drag, more resistance, and less speed. From a lateral perspective, there's often issues with rotation in freestyle and backstroke, causing the limbs to move out of position and increasing the amount of drag that's experienced. Or the rotation isn't a pure one, and there's more side-to-side motion than there should be. Likewise, with breathing and freestyle, the head can often be pulled out of alignment, which is going to increase the amount of drag by decreasing the lateral alignment. So everything needs to be moving straight forward and not side to side. Now, you might ask, what about timing? Good timing basically ensures that the limbs and the body are in the right position so that you can optimize propulsion and reduce resistance. So in every case, they're directly feeding into increased propulsion or decreased drag. So for instance, if freestyle timing is off, that often leads to recoveries that are going to swing out to the side and disrupt lateral alignment. Or the timing of the breath is going to be off, which is going to disrupt either horizontal or lateral alignment. In some cases, if the rotation's off, that can also affect the mechanics of the pull. So in that case, it's negatively impacting propulsion. The same applies to backstroke. Issues with the timing of the rotation are going to disrupt alignment because the arms aren't going to be in the right place, or it's going to disrupt propulsion because the arms also aren't going to be in the right place. With breaststroke, what you'll often see is that swimmers recover their kick as they're taking their pull, and that's like putting on the brakes while hitting the gas, or they're recovering their arms when they try to kick, which is also like hitting the brakes and the gas at the same time. With butterfly, if the kick timing's off, it's going to be much more difficult to recover the arms over the water and also establish alignment in the water after each stroke. With underwater kicking, if the timing isn't correct so that the wave of undulation can't travel appropriately down to the feet, the swimmers aren't going to get as much out of each kick as possible, and they're going to be moving the legs independently of the body. That's probably going to decrease resistance, but it's definitely going to decrease the amount of propulsion that's created. So that's it. Every skill that you think is important in swimming is influencing one of these two objectives. It's either increasing propulsion or it's decreasing drag. Those are the big objectives that we need to focus on in skill development, and maximizing those is going to maximize speed rather than focusing on a lot of little details. And so I challenge you, can you come up with a skill that doesn't fit into one of those two categories? If you can, I'd love to hear about it. Next, we'll start talking about the strategies that you can use to start building sets that train and teach.